to consider the appointment of Geoffrey P. Gariepy to the City of Sterling Heights Planning Commission. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this item? You, sir, in the back, Mr. Mitchell, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Yeah, I would like to speak on this appointment. When I first learned about this, I've been kind of keeping an eye on what's going on around the city. I've been watching some of the issues, taking an interest in what's going on the last couple of years. And it seemed that the Planning Commission had a pretty important role to play. And it should be non-political, impartial, and most of all, civil. So I went to the clerk's office the other day to look up some applications. Maybe I'd like to get involved personally. And I inquired about some other applications on file. Well, I used the Freedom of Information Act to get over 30 applications that were on file for the Planning Commission. And when I saw the one reason that the nominee is looking at, his first interest in the position was because he's interested in local politics and has a politblog. Well, that's interesting. Well, I got to looking at some of them because, Mr. Mayor, you brought it up last time that he's got a politblog. And it's looking like more and more that maybe that's what you're interested in, is politics. I looked at over 30 other applications, and there's several in there that seem to have a genuine interest in the Planning Commission. Some of them even have been college educated in zoning and planning, architecture. There's a couple of ladies in there that look pretty good. While on that subject, I'd like to suggest maybe we should have a lady on a planning commission. But I got to looking at some of these blogs, and there is a serious political bias. And it doesn't matter. I'm not picking on or bringing up either side of the aisle, but this serious political bias is extremely concerning. And some others have looked at this too. So I'm just going to ask, if this is what you want, if this is a requisite, that somebody's got a political blog to be on the Planning Commission, I wish you'd reconsider. I'm asking you to reconsider. There's 30-some applications in here, and probably more over there. His blog, Mr. Gariepy, that's who we're talking about, said that you came to him and you spent 2 hours on a Sunday. And part of the discussion was, I got to keep my political blog. Well, I think politics should not be in the Planning Commission. That's my point. This is serious stuff. So I'm just going to tell you like it is, Mr. Mayor. This does not look good. This is beneath the dignity of what this city deserves. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Mrs. Early.
Yeah, I just come back from Lansing. I guess I'm busy. I want to make a comment. Last meeting, Mayor Taylor stated in his own words, and get used to my English, please. I asked Mr. Gariepy to submit an application because I feel that he will be one of, if not the most qualified candidate in the city for this position. He's really well spoken and he's an excellent communicator. So my question, are the qualifications for the Planning Commission to be a fluent English speaker and a public speaker? And I guess I won't pass that because you had a hard time with my English. So that's the appointee. Even though other candidates may have more professional experience than your appointee, you may tell me that that is life. I mentioned that it is unfair against the people who clearly can be a fit for the position, but are not your friends or don't align with a certain agenda, or furthermore, English is not their primary language. I would like to invite the residents to go to the page. This is his page. And check there. Check how well spoken he is against anybody who doesn't agree with what the administration is doing. When I read his comments, which some has been against me, I feel the hate that is communicated in his statements. And since we are in the era of feelings, I feel that it is a type of intimidation and bullying. The same issues that the city prides of trying to fight against. I tried really hard to understand what is in the heart of the person who is writing those comments, hoping that there is no hate but anybody who reads it. But anybody who reads it can see how biased and discriminatory it is. I had been a recipient indirectly of those name callings. I even made a police report against the appointee, and I had a copy here. I FOIA'd. After there was a post where he portrayed me next to Osama bin Laden. By then, the Planning Commission was under fire because the Muslims wanted to build a mosque on 15 Mile. That picture of his statements in his page regarding anybody who protested the building of the mosque on 15 Mile were highly concerning for many people, especially those who had the courage to stand on 15 Mile to rally. And we were hit by some Muslims who passed and threw sins at us, and it's in the police report too. I want to read a comment written by the appointee on August 20, 2015, in an article called The Realities of Urban Life. You can go and read it there. In this article, he expresses his well-spoken English and excellency in communication. Quote, "I'm amazed at the bigotry and intolerance we are surrounded with, and deeply saddened by the fact that in 2015 we have people willing to stand up in public in full view of a camera and espouse their distrust of people from another religion. And angered by this to the point that I have been avoiding going to the meetings, simply because I don't need the stress and resulting high blood pressures that comes from being forced to deal with ignorance and bigotry by grown adults who ought to know better. I'm reminded of the civil rights movement of the 1960s, and I reflect on how the struggles of the American blacks have never really come to an end, and I see now that Muslims are subjected to the same sin. In the end, the mosque will be built over the protestations of the intolerant. It will turn out to be not a big deal. I'm confident that the bigots among us will return to the woodwork from whence they came. Personally, I hope the bigots put their money where their mouths are and just moved out." End of quote. Those are his words. I don't hold any resentment against this gentleman. Instead, I pray that his heart will change. By the time the LGBT ordinance was going on, people were called bigots and homophobics. Go back to those pages there. I don't want to go further because it's a lot to read. So anybody who is friend, who is involved in the politics that you stand for, and is no, it comes to this podium. Against that, I guess it's not fit for commissions here. Oh, if we are against it, even though we bring the facts, and no, we are not ignorant. We have been researching these matters, and I said it before. I wonder what level are we using to choose the people? I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm reading his own comments. And it's sad to go through that page and read it. And I really invite everybody to go and read it. And you will find out and wonder why is the best person for the fit when they are other applicants that could be nominated and appointed. Thank you.
Anyone else on this item? Mr. Jefferson.
Charles Jefferson, Sterling Heights. I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't know how he could criticize the man when the man is paying him. I don't know how that works out. I'm going to ask the city attorney his very first question. As the new city attorney. When I was on boards or commissions, we were always told that if we was approached by the media to direct it to public relations and public communications end, this guy is part of the media as it is because he had a chance to ask questions at the last debate that none of us got to, and he writes a political blog. That's the media. I don't know how that works in here. Does he have to go through public relations to write his blog, or how is that going to work out? Mayor Taylor, you did say that you spent a couple hours with Mr. Gariepy interviewing him. How many of the other candidates did you interview, and how long did you interview those candidates? And did anyone else interview Mr. Gariepy, and can we find out the answers to the questions that you asked them, or answer them like the guy said? This is the City Planning Commission is a pretty big department, and I've been saying here in these 2000 teens that people are starting to do things differently. I'm getting to the point where I think the Planning Commission, I think we might have to come up to a point where we may have to do things differently for them and put them on the ballot. Make them a ballot item like other communities. Because, as I said, it's two meetings going on here. The insiders and the outsiders. Gariepy, he got an agenda that's being a follower. He only criticized some people, and he only did some certain things to some people. I don't know how he's getting away with it, because he didn't criticize the mayor like other people, and we couldn't get away with it. So, it's like I said, it's some questions to be asked about this. Hopefully you get to answer that question, how it works out with him being part of the media and not being able to direct that off to the side. Thank you.
Mrs. Ryan.
Jackie Ryan, Sterling Heights. Yes, Mr. Taylor, you're on the spot here. It's true, you've spent some time talking to him, but what about the other 30 people? Did you spend some time talking to them? That's everybody's question tonight. And this friendship, when you do these appointments, is that why we're having trouble filling these committees? You know? I mean, when you all took office, you're supposed to be working for the people, representing the people of Sterling Heights. And Mr. Romano made a comment. He said, committee members serve at the pleasure of the council. Now, my question is, do committee members then serve the people too? Or do they just serve the council? Because that's what we want. We want people on these committees, especially planning, to be working for the people of Sterling Heights, doing the best decision that they can for us. So that's my question is there transparency in this, Mr. Taylor, for you? Are you going to come forth as to, did you talk to all these people? Because, yeah, there was a lot of applicants, and they're all good applicants. I wouldn't say there was a bad one in the bunch and that. But, I mean, he does write a blog, Mr. Gariepy, and it is controversial. It does exploit things. And do we really need that on a planning commission? I think we can make a better pick. And I think we should. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Ryan. Anyone else? Mr. Thomas?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Joel Thomas, a resident of Sterling Heights. It seems that some people are judging a person before he even gets on the commission. Why don't we just wait until he does something completely out of the blue, and then we can criticize him? Well,
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Anyone else on this item? Mr. Gariepy?
Hey, why not? I mean, how often do you get your very own agenda item? I'm honored by the nomination. I asked tonight for your appointment. A couple of interesting things have come up in the discussion tonight. I am standing here so that hopefully our friends at SHTV might point their camera at this little piece of paper that I've hastily scribbled my website's address on so everybody can become familiar with what exactly is being talked about. The great thing about being an American is that you get to have an opinion on things political and just about anything else, it seems. And I have taken full maximum advantage of that opportunity to tell anybody who would listen what I think about city politics. I am proud to do it. I stand by the things that I write. There is not an ounce of hatred in anything that I have said, and I am pleased to stand on the record of my writings over the past 5 years. At this website, I went into some detail in, I believe, my most recent post about what I feel my qualifications are for the job. I hope that people will read it. I hope that City Council will agree. One other matter that seems to have come up is the discussion that the mayor and I had together on a Sunday afternoon that lasted for a couple of hours. I'd like to clear something up. I asked for that meeting. It wasn't the mayor interviewing me. I think the mayor would have been perfectly happy to nominate me for the job without the meeting. It was me asking him questions about the job. That's why we got together. It was a good meeting. It was very productive. It answered all of my questions. It was not an interview. So with that, I conclude, and thank you very much, folks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gariepy. Anyone else on this item? If not, council, we need a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romano.
resolved to appoint Jeffrey P. Gariepy to the Planning Commission to a term ending June 30th, 2018, subject to the appointing meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks.
support.
All right, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mr. Romano?
Thank you. First of all, let me just say, I don't compliment the mayor too much. I'm going to compliment him here. I don't know if I'd have sat for 2 hours interviewing somebody or having somebody interview me. When I normally nominate somebody, I do make that phone call. And if my conversation lasts more than 15 minutes, because I have in front of me his application, and I want to verify that. And I guess my last question is, why do you want to serve on this particular board? And what do you think qualifies you to serve on this board? And I'm sure those were the same questions that were asked of Mr. Gariepy. Incidentally, for what it's worth, Mr. Gariepy and I have differed on a lot of occasions. I shouldn't say a lot of occasions, on some occasions. But that's his privilege. That's my privilege to disagree with him. He wants to blog and say something that Romano's got big ears. He can say that. This is America. He's allowed to say that. And if I want to say that I think his blog stinks, even though I've never read it, I can say his blog stinks. And I haven't. Good Lord help me if I'm lying to you. I've never read his blog. I don't care to read his blog, but that's neither here nor there. Some of you people might want to. That's okay. We don't just, when you say you serve at the pleasure of the council, if Mr. Gariepy screws up, and there's no nice way to say it, believe me, he's gone. But he does his homework. He's got the pulse of the city. He knows what's going on. He keeps abreast of what's going on. And I commend him for that. I'm not looking for brownie points. I'm just telling you, I think he's a qualified candidate, and I'm proud to make that nomination. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Romano. Ms. Zarco?
I'm going to agree with Mr. Romano. And not only that, is I know that Mr. Gariepy did his homework before he even put his application in as far as time, commitment to this. But this is a mayoral appointment. So, and with confirmation of council. So I also looked at, when I look at these applications, there's the resident applying lists in order of his preference what commission he'd like to be on, because most of the time it's more than one commission. And when I looked at the list everybody was talking about, there's not that many that actually put that commission first. There are others that they put first. So, I mean, that's another consideration, is why do you want to put somebody on a commission that put it as 21st choice, even though they applied for it? So that's one of the things that I look for. I think that in talking to Mr. Gariepy on several occasions, that he's broad-minded enough to know how to conduct himself on a commission. So I'm not concerned at all. Not only that, is our city administration is certainly going to give him all the materials that he needs to make the decision, his conscience to make a decision. So I'm not concerned about this at all. And certainly if there is a problem, we'll talk to you about it. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Skinars, anything to add?
Just wanted to add that, I guess to follow up on what Mr. Romano said, I've been on the opposite side of Mr. Gariepy in some debates that we've had. But the thing with Mr. Gariepy is he's extremely constructive. He's very deliberative on his thoughts. He's in many ways the opposite of political. So when I hear somebody try to claim that Mr. Gariepy is playing a political game, it's ironic, because the person making that claim, Miss Early, is probably one of the most political people I've ever met. I mean, she's in the back consulting with the other gentleman who said he's never, barely paid attention to stuff, and Miss Early's back there, figuring out with him, strategizing on what they're going to say about Mr. Gariepy. So let's make it clear here. Mr. Gariepy is not political. He's extremely constructive, very bright, has a strong passion about the city, not about politics, and I'm really proud to be able to vote for him tonight. Thanks.
Mayor
Mrs.
Taylor,
Schmidt.
thank you. I as well am very comfortable with this appointment tonight. Probably 5 years ago, Mr. Gariepy and I we didn't see eye to eye on much. And over the last 4 years, I've become, I would like to say, friends with Mr. Gariepy. Our children go to school together and are in band together. So we've become very involved on a personal level, which is totally different than a political blog level. All of my interactions with Mr. Gariepy have been one where he listens. He listens, he takes notes, and he's willing to do homework to make the decision that is what is in the best interest of everyone. When we all sit up here, as well as on the Planning Commission, you may have your own personal philosophy on how you think something should be. But is that really the right answer for what's in the best interest of the city as a whole? You have to be able to differentiate the two. And I truly believe that Mr. Gariepy has the capability of doing that. And that's why I'm comfortable with him being on the Planning Commission, because I believe that he is able to to put his personal opinions and philosophies aside and be a big picture guy. And he does listen and he does do homework. And I think he would be a good fit on the Planning Commission. Nothing further.
Council? Mrs. Koski.
I agree with my colleagues. I've known Mr. Gariepy for a while now. We both work together with the CERT team. He was the one that got me involved again. I took my training and then I kind of faded out, and he was able to talk me into coming back, and now I get to make telephone calls when necessary. He truly loves this city, and I know he works very hard any way that he can to assist the residents, and I know he will do a fantastic job on the Planning Commission. He is very intelligent, and he knows what's going on in the city. So, yes, I support him.
Mr. Shannon?
Thank you. I, too, am very comfortable with this appointment to the Planning Commission. I've spoke with Mr. Gariepy on many occasions. As a matter of fact, 3 weeks ago when we initiated this this appointment, I pulled him aside and said, "I don't need to sit down and have an interview with you. I've had many conversations with you. I've read probably everything that's been on his blog, and it's sort of interesting to hear that someone considers your blog controversial, because I actually think that it's one of the most you have one of the most common sense views on city politics that's out there. So." I'm very comfortable with this. Obviously, I think that some people are probably maybe upset with the appointment, and I think it might be rooted in some sort of sour grapes. So thank you for making yourself available to the city. I know that you will do a great job, so that's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Council. And I want to thank Mr. Gariepy for being here today to give you a, I guess, an indication of his character and what he's all about. On the very item before this agenda item, he spoke against what 6 members of council voted for. Okay? So think about that. He's coming up to be appointed by this council, and he spoke against something that we are all, over the top excited about. So he doesn't care what my politics are or what anybody else is on this. He's going to do what he thinks is right, and he's going to be his own person every single time. And that's a character a quality that I saw in him very early on. And so, there's been questions. Did you interview everybody? No, I didn't interview anybody except for Geoff. I didn't call anybody else except for Geoff. In fact, frankly, I didn't look at anybody else but Geoff. When the Planning Commission appointment came up, I knew I wanted Geoff Gariepy. And it's a mayoral appointment. So you might be asking, well, why didn't you do all those other things? Because I won an election by a landslide that gave me the right to pick who I want as a planning commissioner. And so I did it. And if there was anybody better in the city, it would have been him or her, not Geoff Gariepy. So in my knowledge of everyone in the city, I picked the best person for this job. So I didn't need to interview anybody else. When the president picks a Supreme Court justice, he doesn't interview every single judicial candidate out there. He picks who he thinks will be the best candidate. And that's what I did. Miss Early's not here anymore, and I shouldn't even mention it, but somehow she is able to find in every single agenda item a way to turn it into her being a victim. When I said Mr. Gariepy is an effective communicator, it had nothing to do with Jasmine Early. And I want to say this. I lived in Mexico for 3 months as a foreign exchange student, and I know firsthand how difficult it is living in a country where you don't speak the common language as your first language. It's mentally exhausting, and it's incredibly difficult to do what you need to do. And so I feel for anybody who doesn't speak English as a first language, I can empathize with you because I've lived through it. It has nothing to do with how thick your accent is or whether or not you know every single word in the English language. It's about how well you communicate. Mr. Gariepy can say in 30 seconds what it takes many people to say in minutes. And he's able to cut right to the heart of the issue and understand it quickly without using his full 7 minutes. And so I appreciate that. It's something I could probably learn from. So no, I didn't interview everybody. I picked him because I think he's going to be the best one for the job, and I'm confident in it. So without any further discussion on this item, All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Congratulations, Geoff, and good luck to you and the planning commissioners. Moving on.